The galaxy was wide, full of stars and planets, and humanity had once called many of them home. Centuries ago, humans had left Earth in small fleets, seeking worlds where they could grow and thrive. They had built cities among the stars, mined minerals from asteroids, and created colonies that stretched across systems. For a time, they believed they were equals among the advanced civilizations of the galaxy. But equality was never guaranteed. The Galactic Concord, a council of the most powerful species in the galaxy, watched humans closely. It was said that humans were clever, resourceful, and unpredictable. They could survive in environments no other species could endure. Yet, to the Concord, humans were reckless, sometimes dangerous, and always difficult to control. The trouble began in the Andros cluster, a region rich with energy resources and rare minerals. A human exploration fleet had arrived, claiming a world that several other species wanted. Negotiations failed. Minor skirmishes broke out, and though humans had not started the fighting, their boldness and refusal to yield made them appear aggressive. The Concord acted swiftly. They issued decrees to isolate human colonies. Starports were closed, trade routes were blocked, and human settlements were cut off from supplies. Entire fleets were declared illegal, and human ships were forced to flee or be destroyed. Across the galaxy, human colonies went dark, one by one. Families were separated, friends lost, and the people of humanity faced a crisis they had never imagined. Among the exiles was Captain Maravay, a woman known for her sharp mind and calm courage. She commanded the Endurance, a vessel carrying hundreds of humans, scientists, engineers, children, and families all searching for a place they could safely call home. Mara had faced difficult decisions before, but nothing compared to this. She had to keep her people alive, keep hope alive, and find a planet where no one would chase them away. The journey was not easy. The human ships were old and damaged in the fleeing process. Supplies ran low, and some planets they attempted to colonize were uninhabitable. Mara and her crew traveled from system to system, always careful to avoid Concord patrols. In the cold blackness of unclaimed space, they repaired ships, shared stories, and trained the young ones in skills they might need to survive anywhere. Children played in the corridors of the Endurance, unaware of the dangers that lurked in deep space. They laughed as engineers showed them how to operate small drones, or when scientists let them experiment with harmless experiments in makeshift laboratories. For Mara, these moments were precious. They reminded her that humans were not just survivors, they were creators, explorers, and dreamers. Years passed, supplies dwindled, and fatigue grew. The crew began to lose hope that they would ever find a safe world. Mara often stood on the observation deck, staring at the endless stars, wondering if the galaxy had truly abandoned them. "We are cast aside," she whispered to herself. "But maybe there is a place where we belong." Then, one day, the sensors of the Endurance detected something unusual. A planet, not marked on any charts, far from the known trade routes and Concord territories. It glowed with a mix of blues and greens, its surface dotted with oceans and forests. The readings were promising: breathable atmosphere, fertile soil, and fresh water. For the first time in years, Mara felt a spark of hope. "Prepare for landing," she said to her crew. Her voice carried a mix of authority and relief. Engineers checked the propulsion systems, scientists reviewed the environmental data, and everyone worked together to make sure the landing would be safe. There was no time for celebration, yet they were still far from home. The descent into the planet's atmosphere was tense. The clouds swirled with violent storms. Lightning crackled in the distance, and turbulence shook the ship. Mara gripped the controls, guiding the Endurance with steady hands. Crew members held their breaths, eyes fixed on the monitors, hearts pounding. Slowly, the ship broke through the clouds and descended toward a vast valley. The landing site was untouched. Towering trees stretched toward the sky, rivers sparkled in sunlight, and mountains rose in the distance. Birds, or creatures like birds, flew across the horizon, their calls echoing in the vast open space. It was wild, untamed, and perfect for those who had been hunted across the stars. "Welcome to Earth," Mara said softly, though the name was only a suggestion for now. The planet had been silent for centuries, waiting for someone to call it home. And here were the humans, cast aside by the galaxy, ready to begin again. The first days were full of work. Humans were explorers by nature, and no challenge would stop them. They set up shelters, cleared safe zones in the forests, and mapped the land. Engineers built temporary energy generators from the remnants of their ship. Scientists tested soil and water for nutrition and safety. Children ran through the fields, laughing as if the hardships of space were only distant memories. But the planet was not easy. Storms came without warning. Animals and plants were unpredictable. And resources, though abundant, were sometimes difficult to use. Mara organized teams to monitor these dangers, teaching her people to adapt rather than conquer. Every day was a lesson in patience and ingenuity. Tensions appeared among the humans too. After years of exile, fear and frustration sometimes boiled over. Arguments about leadership, resource use, and exploration strategies created friction. Mara knew these conflicts could threaten the fragile new beginning. She worked tirelessly to mediate, reminding everyone that survival depended on unity. Slowly, disagreements turned into plans, and fear became strategy. In one of the first explorations, a team discovered a network of caves rich with minerals and water pools. Engineers were excited they could build stronger shelters and create storage for supplies. Scientists found plants with medicinal properties, some unknown to human databases. The humans realized that this planet was more than a refuge. It was a gift. Even at night, the planet offered wonder. The sky was filled with stars unlike any they had seen near Concord territories. Strange lights danced in the distance, and the auroras painted the horizons in green and purple. For the first time in years, humans slept without fear of patrol ships or interstellar attacks. They dreamed of the future, a future where they could shape their own destiny. Yet Mara knew that peace was temporary. The conquered would eventually notice that humans were thriving. She worried about the day their presence would attract attention, but she also knew one thing. Humans had survived the galaxy's harshest trials. They had endured hunger, exile, and fear. They were clever, determined, and resourceful. The Concord might try to control them again, but humans had learned to survive against impossible odds. In those first weeks on Earth, humans discovered more than just resources. They discovered themselves. Children learned to fish in the rivers, scientists experimented with hybrid crops, and engineers developed new tools from the materials around them. Communities formed, not because they had to, but because humans naturally worked together, shared knowledge, and celebrated each success. However small, Mara walked among them one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and red. "We may have been cast aside," she said quietly to herself, "but we are not lost. We are humans. We survive, we adapt, and we thrive." The night sky held countless possibilities. Humans had no home among the stars, no allies, and no one to protect them. But Earth, in all its wildness and unpredictability, was theirs. They had come as exiles, but they would stay as pioneers. And this was only the beginning. The galaxy had thrown them away. But on this blue-green planet, humans found hope. They would learn, explore, and grow. And when the time came, they would be ready not just to survive, but to show the galaxy what it truly meant to be human. For the first time in generations, humans could look forward to a tomorrow of their own making. And Mara knew that Earth was only the start. They would face storms, predators, and the challenges of an untamed world. But they would face them together. And together, they would prove that humanity was never meant to be controlled, only respected. Life on Earth was not easy. The humans who had landed with Captain Marave quickly realized that survival meant more than just finding a place to rest. The planet was wild, untamed, and full of challenges, Storms raged across the continents with little warning. Forests were dense and difficult to navigate, filled with strange creatures that watched from the shadows. Rivers could rise in minutes, washing away anything in their path. Yet, for all its dangers, Earth had something humans had not felt in years: opportunity. Mara organized the humans into groups, each with a task. Engineers were assigned to stabilize shelters, repair equipment, and create tools from the ship's remaining parts. Scientists studied the land, identifying edible plants, clean water sources, and the creatures that shared the planet. Farmers worked on cultivating the fertile soil, experimenting with crops that had never existed in human colonies before. And children, though they were the youngest and most vulnerable, were taught to explore safely, to observe, and to learn from their environment. The first month was difficult. The humans quickly learned that their technology, so reliable in other colonies, could not always control nature here. Storms damaged shelters, machines broke down, and a few explorers went missing for hours at a time, lost in forests so thick it was easy to lose one's way. Mara spent long nights planning strategies, studying maps, and coordinating rescue teams. Each day tested her leadership, and each night reminded her that the humans were adaptable. They would not give up. One morning, a team exploring a nearby river valley discovered a grove of trees that produced large, edible fruits. The fruits were not only nourishing but contained substances that could help heal minor injuries. Scientists carefully cataloged the grove, learning how the trees interacted with the environment, and engineers designed baskets and simple machines to collect the fruits efficiently. These small victories kept hope alive. Humans were beginning to understand that Earth, though dangerous, could sustain them if they respected it. Conflict, however, could not be avoided entirely. A disagreement broke out among the engineers and farmers over how to use a newly discovered water source. The engineers wanted to build a complex irrigation system to support multiple shelters. The farmers feared that heavy machinery would destroy the soil and harm native plants. The argument grew heated, voices raised, and for a moment, Mara feared it could split the community. She stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "We are not just surviving," she said. "We are learning. We must work together, not against each other. The planet is not ours to control, it is ours to live with. Find a solution that protects the land and helps us all." Slowly, compromise emerged. Engineers adjusted their designs to minimize environmental impact, and farmers helped guide the process. This small victory was a lesson. Humanity's greatest strength was not technology alone, but collaboration and adaptability. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The humans mapped forests, rivers, and mountains. They discovered caves filled with crystals and minerals, underground water sources, and fertile valleys hidden from view. They learned to predict weather patterns by observing clouds, winds, and wildlife. Mara led exploration teams into distant regions, teaching young scientists and engineers to read the land and use resources wisely. Children grew up fast on Earth. They learned skills that were considered advanced for their age. Climbing trees to collect fruit safely, creating simple devices from natural materials, tracking animals to understand their behavior. They laughed and played. Yet every game was also a lesson in survival. The adults watched them proudly, realizing that this new generation would grow stronger and wiser than any before. One day, while exploring a forest near the northern mountains, a team encountered a herd of large, herbivorous creatures. They were taller than a human, with thick hides and long, graceful necks. At first, the explorers were cautious, but the creatures were peaceful. Scientists documented their behavior, while engineers began to understand how to use their movement patterns to predict changes in the forest. The discovery brought excitement and curiosity. Life on Earth was not just something to endure, it was something to study, respect, and marvel at. Despite these successes, the humans never forgot their past. Mara reminded them that the Galactic Concord had cast them aside. While Earth offered safety, it could not shield them forever from the wider galaxy. Scouts and sensors were set up to detect distant ships or signals. The humans knew that one day, someone would come to see if they were truly gone, and when that time came, they wanted to be ready. The first sighting came sooner than expected. A small, fast-moving craft appeared on the edge of the system. Mara's sensors picked it up, and for hours the humans debated whether to approach or hide. Finally, Mara decided to let it observe from a distance. The craft did not attack. Instead, it hovered near the outer atmosphere, scanning and recording before moving on. Mara believed it was a reconnaissance mission from a distant Concord patrol. Humanity was being watched. This event sparked a wave of innovation. Engineers worked tirelessly to improve communication systems and defensive measures. Scientists experimented with camouflage techniques, blending shelters into the forests. Farmers and builders developed ways to store food, water, and medicine efficiently. The humans were no longer just survivors, they were becoming self-reliant, capable of thriving even under observation. As the seasons changed, the humans adapted further. They discovered that certain plants could produce medicine for illnesses and injuries. They built wind turbines and solar collectors to provide energy without harming the land. Rivers became sources of power and transport. Children learned to navigate forests with confidence. And young adults led expeditions into dangerous regions, mapping new territories. Each success strengthened morale, and the humans began to feel not just like exiles, but like pioneers of a new world. One evening, Mara walked along a cliff overlooking a vast valley. Fires from human settlements dotted the landscape below, and the sounds of laughter and conversation drifted through the night air. She felt a mix of pride and concern. They had accomplished so much, yet the threat of the galaxy remained. Humans had survived countless hardships, but Earth was just the beginning of what they could become. Captain Mara, a young scientist named Lyra, said, approaching her carefully. "We found something unusual." Lyra held a datapad showing patterns in the northern forests. Large structures buried beneath vegetation, covered for centuries but clearly made by intelligent hands. Mara examined the readings closely. The structures were unlike anything humans had built. Their origin was unknown, but their design suggested knowledge of advanced construction and energy manipulation. "This planet has secrets," Mara said quietly. "We are not alone in its history. We must learn, but we must also be careful." The discovery reminded the humans that Earth, though their refuge, had its own mysteries and challenges. Survival required respect, patience, and constant vigilance. Months passed. Humans learned to predict storms, avoid dangerous animals, and cultivate the land without destroying it. Communities grew. Each settlement specialized in certain skills: engineering, farming, research, or defense. Trade between settlements strengthened bonds, and knowledge was shared freely. Mara watched as humans began to thrive in ways that even the Concord had not expected. Children, now more skilled than their age suggested, played games that taught teamwork, strategy, and observation. They raced along rivers, built small structures in forests, and experimented with new ways to harvest food. Every mistake became a lesson. Every success, no matter how small, was celebrated. Humans were learning not just to survive, but to live with purpose. One particularly harsh storm struck the eastern valley. Fierce winds tore through trees, heavy rain flooded lowlands, and lightning set small fires. Humans worked together to protect their shelters and help those in need. The storm tested every skill they had learned. But when the sun returned, the humans emerged stronger. They repaired damage, reinforced structures, and studied the storm's patterns. What could have destroyed them instead made them wiser. By the end of the first year, humans had transformed Earth into a refuge that combined technology and nature. Shelters blended with forests, farms nurtured crops without harming the land, and energy systems were efficient and sustainable. Humans were no longer merely surviving, they were shaping a future. And through it all, Mara's leadership guided them, balancing caution with courage, planning with adaptation, and authority with trust. But even in these achievements, humans were aware of their fragile place in the galaxy. The Concord might still send patrols or observers. Alien species could be curious or hostile. Yet for the first time in generations, humans were confident that they could meet any challenge. They had adapted to exile, conquered fear, and learned to thrive on a world that no other civilization had claimed. Earth had become more than a refuge. It was a proving ground. Each human, from the youngest child to the oldest engineer, understood that survival meant more than skill. It meant determination, intelligence, and unity. The exiles had become pioneers, and their story was only beginning. As night fell, Mara stood once more on the cliff, looking at the lights of human settlements glowing softly in the darkness. She knew the Concord and the galaxy would not forget them. But she also knew something more important. Humans had survived, learned, and grown stronger than ever. Earth was theirs, and the humans were ready to face whatever would come. For the first time, humanity could not only endure, they could thrive. And thriving was something no exile, no council, and no storm could ever take away. Years had passed since the humans first set foot on Earth. What began as a fragile settlement of exiles had transformed into a thriving community. Shelters were no longer temporary. They had become durable structures, built from local materials but enhanced with human technology. Farms stretched across fertile valleys, providing more than enough food. Children had grown into young adults who knew the land as well as they knew the technology that had brought them there. Captain Marave walked through the central settlement one morning, observing the bustling activity. Engineers worked on energy systems, ensuring that solar and wind generators ran efficiently. Farmers tended crops with care, using techniques that increased yields without harming the soil. Scientists studied the planet's ecosystems, discovering ways to balance human activity with natural growth. Everywhere Mara looked, she saw the evidence of human ingenuity and perseverance. Despite their successes, the humans never became complacent. Mara reminded them constantly that the wider galaxy still existed, and that the Concord, along with other alien civilizations, might take notice of their progress. Patrols or scouts could appear at any time, but humans had learned one crucial lesson. Fear was useful only when it motivated action, not when it paralyzed them. One day, scouts reported a distant fleet entering the system. Mara immediately called a council meeting. The fleet was small, sleek, and fast-moving. It hovered just outside Earth's orbit, scanning the planet. The humans prepared, but Mara knew that confrontation might not be necessary. Diplomacy could be as powerful as force. When the alien craft transmitted a signal, it was clear that they sought communication rather than conflict. Mara, with careful preparation, responded. She transmitted a message explaining that humans had been exiled, that they now lived on this planet in peace, and that they sought no war but would defend their home if necessary. Hours passed before a reply arrived, a mixture of curiosity and caution. The aliens were astonished at what humans had built in such a short time. The first visitors finally landed on the outskirts of the settlement. They were humanoid, but taller, with pale blue skin and elongated limbs. Their eyes were intelligent and inquisitive, but they carried no weapons. Mara greeted them personally, her posture confident and calm. "Welcome to Earth," she said. "You are the first to meet humans in a long time. We mean no harm, but we are prepared to protect our home." The aliens observed the settlement, the farms, the energy systems, and the harmony between humans and their environment. They asked questions, studied tools, and watched children playing. Slowly, their skepticism softened into admiration. Humans had taken a wild, untamed world and made it thrive without destroying it. They had created technology and culture in balance with nature, something few species could achieve. Word spread quickly across the galaxy. Reports of humans thriving on an untouched planet reached Concord networks and other civilizations. Many were surprised. Some were fascinated. Humans, once considered reckless and dangerous, were now seen as capable, resilient, and intelligent. The perception of humanity was changing. Mara and her council decided to use this moment to strengthen their position. They invited select species to visit Earth, observe, and learn. They shared knowledge about sustainable energy, agriculture, and technology. The humans did not seek dominance, they offered cooperation and innovation. Slowly, alliances began to form. Aliens who had once feared humanity now regarded them as a partner, not a threat. Meanwhile, the humans continued to innovate. Engineers discovered ways to enhance energy systems using local resources. Scientists developed medicines from native plants that could cure illnesses previously untreatable in human colonies. Children and young adults learned skills that combined traditional knowledge with advanced technology. Each generation became more capable than the last, more confident in their ability to face challenges, and more determined to thrive. Mara reflected on the journey that had brought them here. Exile had forced humans to adapt, to innovate, and to unite. The Concord had cast them aside, believing they were weak or reckless. But on Earth, humans had not only survived, they had risen stronger than ever. One day, scouts reported a Concord patrol approaching the system. The humans were ready. Not with fear, but with confidence. Mara instructed her council to prepare a welcoming demonstration, showing the Concord representatives that humanity was not only capable of surviving, but of creating a society that balanced technology and nature. The Concord fleet arrived, and humans met them in the skies above Earth's surface. They displayed their energy systems, transportation methods, and the sustainable cities that blended seamlessly with the environment. Representatives of the Concord watched in silence as humans conducted experiments, demonstrated agriculture techniques, and explained the harmony they had achieved with the planet. The outcome surprised everyone. The Concord had expected humans to be fragile, reckless, or dependent on alien technology. Instead, they witnessed a civilization that was independent, resilient, and innovative. Captain Mara addressed the representatives with calm authority. "We were cast aside," she said. "We had no home, no allies, and no certainty. Yet we survived, we adapted, and we thrived. This planet is ours, and we will protect it, but we are also willing to share knowledge and cooperation with those who respect us and our home." The Concord representatives had no choice but to acknowledge humanity's accomplishments. They could not dismiss the ingenuity, determination, and discipline displayed by humans on Earth. Slowly, the reports sent across the galaxy began to change. Humans were no longer seen as reckless exiles, they were pioneers, innovators, and a species capable of greatness. Even as the Concord returned to their fleets, humans continued to build. Children now led small expeditions, young engineers improved transportation systems, and scientists worked on projects that would shape humanity's future for centuries. Mara watched these developments with pride. Knowing that Earth had become more than a refuge, it had become a proving ground for human potential. The aliens who had visited returned, some as observers, some as partners. Together, they shared knowledge, exchanged ideas, and collaborated on projects that benefited all species. Humans had proven that they could thrive in harmony with nature and technology, and the galaxy took notice. Mara walked along the cliffs one evening, looking at the lights of the settlements below. Fires flickered across the valleys, energy systems hummed quietly, and children's laughter drifted in the air. She thought about the journey that had brought them here, from exile to survival, from fear to confidence. Humanity had shown the galaxy that they could endure the impossible, adapt to the harshest conditions, and create a society that respected both nature and technology. She smiled, knowing that the future was full of possibilities. The Concord might still watch, the galaxy might still doubt. But humans had proven something far more important. They could rise from any challenge, turn exile into opportunity, and thrive against the odds. Earth had become more than a refuge. It was a symbol. The exiles had turned into pioneers. Their resilience, creativity, and unity had transformed a wild, untamed planet into a thriving home. The galaxy would remember Earth not as a planet abandoned by humans, but as the place where humanity had shown its true strength. For the first time, humans could look to the stars with confidence, knowing that they were not only survivors but builders, innovators, and leaders. And as Mara gazed at the sky, she knew that Earth was only the beginning. Humanity would continue to grow, to explore, and to rise no longer cast aside, but celebrated across the galaxy. The planet, once wild and untamed, now thrived with human presence. Communities worked together. Knowledge was shared freely, and children learned the values of courage, intelligence, and unity. Humans had proven that no exile, no council, and no challenge could take away the spirit that defined them. As the first stars appeared in the evening sky, Mara whispered to herself, "We are not lost. We are humans, and this is our home." The galaxy had thrown them away, but humans had turned rejection into triumph. Earth had become a beacon of hope, resilience, and ingenuity, and humanity, once cast aside, had risen stronger, smarter, and more capable than any species could have imagined. The story of the exiled humans was no longer one of despair. It was a story of triumph, innovation, and survival. It was a story that the galaxy would never forget, and on Earth, the humans thrived.